If you've had your gallbladder removed, like most folks, you may have been told, it doesn't really do anything anyways, we might as well just yank it. And the reality is that it actually does a lot of things, and some of those purposes are quite important. So in this video, we're going to explain some of the complications that can come about from having your gallbladder removed, and then we'll give you some steps that you can take to improve those situations or avoid them. Let's get at it.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So before we get into these troubles, try not to get too bent out of shape about the fact that somebody talked you into having your gallbladder removed. It may have really needed to come out. Sometimes it's so problematic that the only option is to pull it out. So try not to get too upset about it, and instead use this information to benefit you in your life moving forward. So to understand the problems that can come about, we first need to understand the job that the gallbladder does. So what happens is when we eat food, our stomach makes hydrochloric acid, or HCl. And this stomach acid is meant to help us start to acidify and break that food down. And then once the acidified food leaves the stomach, it goes into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine. And that's when the gallbladder squirts this alkaline bile down onto this acidic product leaving the stomach. And bile is this soapy substance that's made by the liver, and then it goes down into the gallbladder where it's stored and it's concentrated. And it's concentrated so that a small amount of this bile can be very effective. So we'll explain why this happens in a minute, but the first kind of situation I want to talk about is these phantom gallbladder attacks that a person can have after their gallbladder has been removed. They'll have their gallbladder removed and like, wow, that feels a lot better. I'm not having these gallbladder attacks anymore. And all of a sudden they'll have another gallbladder attack. I'm like, well, I don't even have a gallbladder. How am I having a gallbladder attack? And the doctor usually tells them, well, that's called a phantom pain. It's just kind of in your head. It's kind of like if somebody has their arm amputated, but it still kind of feels like their arm is there. It's a phantom feeling that you're having. But the reality is sometimes it's not a phantom feeling. Sometimes they're actually having an attack, because this is what can happen. The reason that these stones form in the gallbladder, or there's some type of infection happens that causes the gallbladder to need to be removed, is because the bile becomes too thick and sticky to flow correctly. So this bile becomes sludgy in the gallbladder and it becomes stagnant, and it continues to concentrate until they form into stones or create other problems. So if this gallbladder is so backed up with thick bile that's not moving, then the biliary pathway behind that gallbladder can also get backed up with this thick bile that becomes too concentrated. So someone will have their gallbladder removed, but they often don't check to see, is that biliary pathway coming from the liver down to the gallbladder, is that cleared out and is it flowing correctly? And if it's not, that blockage can create these gallbladder attacks that feel like a person still has a gallbladder. So that can be one problem that a person has after their gallbladder has been removed. The next issue is that without a gallbladder, a person may not be able to digest their dietary fats correctly. This bile that's stored in the gallbladder, this soapy substance, helps us emulsify or break down our dietary fats. Just like a soap helps us get grease off of our hands, this bile helps us break that fat down into smaller particles so that they can be used by the body. So since there's no longer a gallbladder storing this bile and dropping this big bolus of bile down onto the acid product leaving the stomach, it doesn't have the ability to really break down our dietary fats. Now, if that biliary pathway that we just talked about is flowing correctly, a person will usually have bile coming down, just kind of trickling down into the intestinal tractway on a consistent basis. And maybe there's enough to kind of help them process some of their dietary fats. But in most cases, there's not enough bile dropping down on that meal to help you really break down those dietary fats. So that can lead to issues like gas and bloating and digestive discomfort and nausea, because when these dietary fats don't get broken down correctly, they become rancid and they rot and ferment, and that's how they kind of break down, and it becomes more of a problem for the body instead of giving the body fuel. Now these undigested fats become a burden that the body has to deal with. It's like, well, what do I do with these now? And the body wants to get rid of them. So maybe the body tries to push these undigested fats out through the pores in the skin, which clogs up those pores and creates acne or other types of skin problems. Or maybe the body takes these undigested fats and stores some of them in fat cells to kind of keep the body rid of all these toxins that those undigested fats are creating, and now our pants expand and they don't fit. So there's a lot of problems that can come when a person can't break down their dietary fats correctly. When they can't break down dietary fats, they also can't assimilate fat-soluble vitamins, which can lead to a wide variety of issues we'll talk about in a bit. The next issue, and the most common complaint that we see from people who have their gallbladder removed, is loose stool or diarrhea issues. So here's what's going on. In some cases, the body may be trying to push those undigested fats out of the body as quickly as possible, and sometimes the best way to get them out is out the back door in a hurry. But in most cases, the problem is that this alkaline bile that's stored in the gallbladder, when it comes down, it neutralizes these acids that are leaving the stomach. So the acidic product that got acidified in the stomach leaves, and then the alkaline bile comes down and neutralizes those acids. And the alkaline substance meeting an acid substance creates this sizzle that really helps us bust the food apart and pull all those nutrients out of that food. But if those acidic foods don't get neutralized by alkaline bile, then they continue to move through the intestinal tract in their acidic state. And the stomach was made to hold those acids, but the intestinal tract is not. And those acids are also made to break down protein. Well, guess what your intestinal tract is made out of? Yeah, it's protein. So if these acids move through the intestinal tract and start to digest a hole through the intestinal tract, then that's a problem. You're going to leak cheeseburgers all over your intestines. So the body doesn't want that to happen. It says, hey, let's bring all the water we can here to cool these acids off and then rush them out the back door as fast as we can, and then it lifts us off the toilet like a rocket and we have diarrhea all the time. So this is a really common problem that we see with people who have lost their gallbladder. Now, this isn't always the case. Some people even deal with constipation when they've lost their gallbladder, and this can happen for a number of reasons. Bile is this soapy substance that kind of helps to lubricate the stool and help it move a little bit smoother. So without that lubricated bile, it's possible to create some constipation issues. But a more likely cause of the constipation is, remember that sizzle that's created by the acid meeting the alkaline bile? That sizzle helps us pull all the minerals out of the food that we're eating. So if we don't have that sizzle, we can't access all the minerals in the food that we're eating, and the body needs minerals to make hydrochloric acid, that stomach acid that helps us acidify our food. And if there's not enough stomach acid, because the body doesn't have the resources to make that stomach acid, now the stool is more alkaline because it didn't get acidified correctly, and an alkaline stool will move through the system at a slower pace. So that can slow down the stool and create constipation issues. Now, there are other causes of constipation, but if someone's lost their gallbladder, these are some pretty common causes. The next problem that goes along with this is the mineral deficiency issues that we just talked about. An inability to pull those minerals out of the food can create mineral deficiencies that can create a wide variety of symptoms, but it can also lower the mineral levels in the entire system, and that can lead to issues like depression and anxiety and insomnia and crazy, insane cravings. And some of these issues have other causes as well, but when blood pressure goes really low because mineral levels are very low, it can create some of these symptoms for a lot of people. We also have the issues of just the digestive discomforts, like the gas and the bloating and either the diarrhea or constipation. You know, all these things can be problems in themselves for the person dealing with it. We touched on the acne or skin issues that can come about from an inability to deal with those digestive fats, and that can be another problem. And one of the biggest issues is that when the liver filters toxins out of the body, it puts a lot of those toxins into the bile, so that when the bile comes down through the intestinal tract, those toxins are carried out the back door. But if that bile is not flowing correctly, maybe your gallbladder was taken out, but that biliary pathway is not moving right, then the bile is not flowing. So when the liver filters these junk out of the body and puts it into the bile, when it's not going out the back door, those toxins get reassimilated into the system, and now the liver's got to filter them out all over again. So if the body's not detoxing, that can create a lot of problems as far as, you know, those skin or acne issues, but also weight gain when the body takes some of these toxins and stores them into fat cells. So you really want the body to be able to detox the way that it should. Another issue can be hypothyroid symptoms. So the liver is involved in converting T4 to T3, which is the active form of the thyroid hormone, and that's really necessary for the thyroid to function correctly. And a lot of people believe that bile is actually involved in that conversion. So if there is no bile coming down and it's not there available for the body to use, then you're going to have problems with the thyroid as well. And if those toxins aren't being removed, now the liver is going to be overwhelmed doing all the same jobs over and over again, and it can't do all of its other jobs like converting T4 to T3. So in either scenario, this can be problematic when it comes to the thyroid. Another common symptom we hear about is dry eyes or dry skin. And now both of these issues can have other underlying causes, but many believe these can come about from a vitamin A deficiency. And vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, so if you can't break down your dietary fats, then you can't assimilate fat-soluble vitamins. You're going to become deficient on a lot of those fat-soluble vitamins like A, E, D, and K. So you can have a wide variety of issues that can come from those specific fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies. So you can see there's a lot of trouble that can come about from losing your gallbladder. Just know that there's steps that you can take to improve those issues. So why don't you jump right now over to our video on 6 steps to take if you've lost your gallbladder to understand steps that you can take to improve or avoid some of these issues. I can't wait to hear about your results.